Monday, March 25th. Pro-independence demonstrations continue in India, heavily repressed by the British authorities. Karl Dönitz, the head of the U-boat Waffe, meets with members of the operations section of his general staff. The main business is an analysis of Operation Hartmut, the submarine cover for the invasion of Norway and Denmark. The principal role for the U-boats is to protect the Kriegsmarine warships as they disembark troops at the Norwegian ports. In order to repulse any attack by the Royal Navy, the Germans plan to have groups of submarines in those fjords along the coast where Allied forces might disembark. Narvik is the biggest problem due to its strategic position, and so a large number of U-boats are to be placed in front of the port to form a barrier. Due to the necessity of having all available submarines, Dönitz orders the withdrawal of most units operating in the Atlantic and all those in the Baltic, and incorporates the small submarines that are used in the schools and the new U-64 and U-65 models. Tuesday, March 26th. In the Reich Chancellery in Berlin, Hitler and Raeder finalized the details of Operation Weserübung. The Nazi leader decides that the action should begin between April 8th and 10th. Mussolini meets with the Hungarian Prime Minister, Paul Count Teleki Desek of the Hungarian Fascist Party. Although a member of the Axis, Teleki refused to allow German troops to cross his territory during the invasion of Poland and declared Hungary a non-belligerent nation. The driving force behind a number of anti-Semitic laws, he maintains close relations with the Third Reich. He asks for Mussolini's support and mediation in negotiations in August between Romania and Hungary, hoping to recover part of Transylvania lost at the end of the First World War. The Hungarian leader also confesses his fears to the Italian dictator over the prospect of a total victory for Hitler in the war. In Paris, the military trial begins of 44 communist deputies expelled from the French Chamber of Deputies. The government accuses them of working for Moscow against the interests of their own country. In the sea war, U-38, commanded by Heinrich Liebe, sinks the Norwegian merchantman Cometa. Wednesday, March 27th. The new French ministers arrive in London to take part in a meeting of the Allied War Council. In Paris, the Soviet ambassador is involved in a diplomatic row caused by a telegram sent to Foreign Minister Molotov, which, apart from offering congratulations on the Soviet-Finnish treaty, states, "The British and French war plans that attempted to set alight the north of Europe have failed again." Skirmishes continue on the Franco-German border. The German Army High Command announces it has captured a number of prisoners south of Pyramins, and their planes have shot down a British Hurricane and a French Moran. From London, the Allies announced that 7 Luftwaffe planes have been brought down over French territory, and the RAF has sunk a German patrol boat in the North Sea. In the port of Casablanca, in Morocco, there is an explosion aboard the French destroyer La Rayeuse. 7 sailors are killed. In Poland, Heinrich Himmler inspects the work on the Auschwitz concentration camp. In the Sea War, the Allied governments announced they will not respect the neutrality of Norwegian waters due to systematic violation of those waters by German ships. U-22, commanded by Karl Heinrich Dönitz, sinks after hitting a mine. Thursday, March 28th. The British Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, opens the session of the Allied Supreme War Council with a general examination of the international situation from his point of view. Chamberlain says the Third Reich has 2 weak points: the supply of iron and oil. He believes it is vitally important to halt the flow of iron from Sweden to Nazi Germany. The Romanian and Baku oil deposits are a lifeline for Hitler's armies, he says, and they should stop supplying crude to a regime that uses terror and war to achieve its aims. The French Prime Minister, Reynaud, is in favor of bombing the oil fields of Baku and Romania at the right moment, but Chamberlain prefers to try to reach an agreement by diplomatic means. The British and French sign an undertaking not to conclude a unilateral peace treaty with Germany. Reuters announces that in the last 7 months, the RAF and anti-aircraft guns have shot down 128 German planes, most over the east coast of England. Luftwaffe planes attack an Allied convoy close to the Shetland Islands, causing serious damage to a number of merchant vessels. Friday, March 29th. The American Secretary of State, Sumner Welles, returns to Washington and informs President Roosevelt of his gloomy predictions following his journey to Europe. In Moscow, the Foreign Minister Molotov declares that, in spite of the provocations of the Western powers, the Soviet Union will continue its policy of neutrality. He warns that an alliance between the 3 Nordic countries would go against the peace treaty signed with Finland. Molotov also makes reference to the concentration of Allied troops in Syria. Our enemies should know that we have non-aggression agreements with Turkey and Iran, and any attack on our territory will be met with a forceful response. Soviet engineers carry out the first flight tests of the Mikoyan-Gurevich prototype, known as the MiG-1. British and French warships head for Norwegian waters, ignoring protests from the government in Oslo. Sir William Seeds, the British ambassador in the Soviet Union, returns to his Moscow office following a long absence motivated by the Soviet-Finnish War. The British government thus demonstrates it has no intention of breaking off diplomatic relations with Russia. Saturday, March 30th. The German Secret Service intercepts a message from the French Prime Minister Paul Reynaud, in which he says that operations in Norway will begin in a question of days. Hitler meets with the Armed Forces High Command and orders the invasion of Norway to begin at 5:15 a.m. on April 9th. The Foreign Ministry of the Third Reich publishes a white book containing documents taken from Polish ministries, which are used in an attempt to justify the invasion of the country. In London, Churchill warns of the intensification of fighting and states that Britain will not accept another incident like that of the Altmark. 2 Messerschmitts and a Dornier 17 are shot down by RAF planes. Meanwhile, a Luftwaffe squadron attacks a convoy in the Atlantic, sinking a merchant ship and damaging a British cruiser. In the naval war, the struggle for control of the seas increases. British attempts to blockade the Third Reich are countered by the frenetic activity of the German U-boats. The sea war has become a vicious cycle in which international law is ignored and indiscriminate attacks against any enemy ship are carried out by both sides. The fear of what the British call Q ships and the Germans call pirates haunts both navies. Sunday, March 31st. The Atlantis, a merchantman armed and turned into a German pirate ship, captained by Berghard Roge, leaves German waters in search of enemy ships. Its mission is to attack Allied merchant vessels sailing alone by pretending to be a merchant ship and changing its flag. In Germany, the group conspiring against the regime, organized by the diplomat Ulrich von Hassel, tries to win over General Halder to the plan to put an end to Hitler. In London, Winston Churchill tells the press the British government will adopt serious measures in the North Sea as the Nordic democracies are being forced to submit to the German pressure to allow the transport of iron through their waters. In Saarbrück, in the west of Germany, a number of air fights take place between German and French planes. After losing 7 planes, the French return to their bases. Meanwhile, artillery shelling continues on the frontier throughout the day. In Moscow, following events in Finland, the government adopts a position of vigilant neutrality. Nevertheless, Stalin attempts to satisfy his ambitions regarding Bessarabia, which Romania annexed after the Great War using diplomacy.